Welcome, welcome to Miracles with a Twist. I'm Lori Cardona. I'm here with Linda Pazos. We are presenting part 2 of a program we put together about a month ago. That was June of 2024. And regardless of when you're listening or watching it, we are recording this in July of 2024. And part 1 was emotional healing and holy relationships, and this is part 2. In part 1, we covered much of what we often discuss in conversations just when we're having our casual time together. And then when we wrapped it up, we thought, well, there's more to say. And we got some really great responses. Lots of folks saying that they're waiting for part 2. When are you going to get to it? So today's the day. There's 2 things that we focused on. One was the 3 C's, which is chemistry, compatibility, and commitment, with commitment being the greatest of all 3. And my dear friend and beloved co-podcaster, Reverend Lisa Benton, she and I do Mystic Conversations together. She mentioned that in her relationship with her husband, they add a 4th C, which is celebration. So they attribute the success of their 40+ year relationship and marriage to the fact that they do have chemistry and compatibility and a commitment to the goal of a holy relationship that they celebrate on a daily basis. They celebrate everything to keep joy and fun as part of their relationship. And one of the C's, so we're adding a 4th C. So we've got chemistry, compatibility, commitment, and celebration. And then the other thing we talked about was the body, mind, and spirit being the Holy Trinity. You said that toward the end, and that's when we decided we had to talk about this some more, because it's an interesting concept. And the triune, a Trinity, has been present since ancient times in religion, in spiritual paths, and in cultures. So I just wanted to mention a few. In the teachings of the Buddha, we have the Buddha, the Sangha, and the Dharma. In Hinduism, we have Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma. In Christianity, we have Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And in Judaism, on the Sabbath, they twist the challah bread into 3 strains, and that refers to truth, peace, and justice. And so from the metaphysical course perspective, maybe New Thought, we're saying that the Holy Trinity is body, mind, and spirit, to truly understand the importance of all of us embodying the holiness of that. And so we're going to be talking more about that as we move into this part 2 of holy relationships and emotional healing. So hi, Linda, welcome. Thanks for coming back.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. As always, it's wonderful to talk to you about these things. We kind of just get into these conversations before we know we're like, wait, we should do a podcast. Or maybe the other day we were at a friend's house and she was saying, you guys should have recorded this.
I know. At 20 minutes into the conversation, we're like, oh, that's a podcast.
Yeah. So anyway, we were talking about the Holy Trinity, or the triune, that exists in so many faiths and beliefs. And we specifically, in part 1, we're talking about the body, mind, spirit. And that there is really meaning there's no separation of the spiritual and the emotional being. We're all one. My interpretation is the relationship is the body, the mind is compatibility, and the spirit is the commitment. Specifically, we talked about those 3 things during the period of discomfort, because we talked about emotional healing, the period of discomfort, or the power struggle as it's known. And we also talked a lot about commitment, and we're bringing that back again this time. The pamphlet in Holy Relationships and Course in Miracles calls it, that's what they call the goal. Everything's about the goal in a relationship. And that meaning, as I was reading through it, reminded me that it's synonymous with a truly beloved commitment.
To holding the other beloved. The power struggle that you mentioned is something that almost naturally occurs when, you get past the honeymoon phase and you start noticing some tension. And it's all about how you navigate that tension with kindness and compassion. There's a line in the Course in Miracles about holy relationships that I wanted to read to you. It says, the holy relationship is one in which you join with what is part of you in truth. So, there's a lot of parts of us, there's, and the part that is the absolute truth is the part that is seeing the other with loving eyes, with not just the in love eyes, but the true love eyes that navigate and work through that period of tension or power play or whatever happens at that point, period of discomfort, and allows us to truly expand our hearts so that we have kindness and compassion. And the part that is truly who we are is not the part that is filled with judgment and blame and shame and wants to get into the power struggle, but the part that wants to connect heart to heart.
Yeah. That true, authentic self, which is loving, kind, and compassion, as you said. And I feel as we evolve, it's really knowing thyself in the spiritual and emotional relationship. It's like we talk about commitment in a relationship, but that's a commitment to self. So focusing on healing of the self is not selfish, but understanding, part of our core beliefs stem from the thoughts that we have, and thoughts then become our emotions and feelings, and those become actions and or reactions, our behaviors, and especially when we're triggered.
Yeah, and the triggers is where it becomes problematic, because we start out, I said in the last one, we can go from being Mother Teresa to the Wicked Witch, because we have this, we have the good intention, right? We have the intention of creating a holy relationship and focusing on those 4 C's. But then the trigger is what creates the problems. And that's why the know thyself part is that if I can know that there's certain things that trigger me, it doesn't become your responsibility, it becomes my responsibility to learn how to heal those things, to discuss them in a way that is mutually kind, mutually loving, to keep the idea that if I'm going to be triggered by something, then it may be something that only comes up in certain times in certain types of relationships. And we have to just raise our consciousness around what that really is. And it's not about giving up our individuality. It's about joining with the other person in the understanding that we have this, these amygdalas, we have brain chemistry that sometimes leads us astray, but we also have this higher holy self that leads us back. And the Course in Miracles and other paths also talk about how, the human being has this tendency to be a little insane at times. And so I looked it up, and A Course in Miracles refers to insanity, you ready for this? 249 times. 249
You're
times.
saying we're all crazy.
We all are a little bit crazy. I heard a teacher of A Course in Miracles once say that the universe is the psychiatric unit of the earth is the psychiatric unit of the universe. So we can all go a little bit crazy if we don't do our own individual work, if we don't adhere to our discipline, to do better and be better, to rise higher, forgive and love, and to continuously come back to that as a joined unit with someone else, to say, I can see where I've gone astray, and I want to come back and be in line with you, so we can continue to work on creating this holy relationship.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're right. But it's much easier said than done.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like you can go to the doctor and get a Z-Pack. You're cured by antibiotics.
No, there's no pill for that. There's no pill. I wish there was. No, there isn't. But you know what? It's not,
right?
it's not just that we are doing the work. It's about that we continuously commit to the work, that we continuously, at an ongoing basis, commit to doing the healing work and the spiritual work.
Right.
And I was telling you about this master class. It was called the Master Class on Hidden Effects of Trauma in Relationships. And it talked about how emotional healing is an understanding that there are things in the past that have traumatized us, and we sometimes bring that trauma into our relationships. And these two guys, Thomas Hubel and Terry Real, talked about the fact that there is a commitment that they themselves have made to their lives and to their wives, because it still occurs within their relationships that they get tripped up, because people were asking them, do you ever heal?
Right. I've asked that, is it ever done?
Right. And I guess as long as we're, in flesh and bones, we have work to do, and so I was thinking about how it's almost a sacred conversation. I call them holy quantum physicists, because they were really recognizing the importance of holding each other in a place of understanding. And they were saying that, even their wives sometimes say, look, this has got to be a deal that we make within ourselves and within this relationship, that only one of us gets to go crazy at the time, and it's very much in line with the teachings of A Course in Miracles. I'm going to read something to you. This actually says, it's in reference to those 249 crazy times. It says, whoever is more sane at the time the threat is perceived should remember how in debt his or her, how in debt she or he is to the other, and how much gratitude is due him, to be glad that he can pay his debt by bringing happiness to both. And these quantum physicists are saying the same thing, like, let's recognize that we have this ability to, go offline, to get a little bit crazy, but we have this partner who's saying, all right, I'm getting triggered too, but I'm going to hold space in this moment. And, it's almost like we can take turns with it. And, thank you for giving me the opportunity to see what still needs to be healed. That's the indebtedness. And that's the blessing, that, there's still stuff that needs to be healed. I just showed out, and I'm sorry for that. And I want to heal it so that I don't do harm, that I don't hurt you, and that I don't hurt this relationship. And we maintain that commitment to the goal of a holy relationship and emotional healing.
And that comes, I think, with a deep-seated internal love for the other.
Yeah.
And the commitment to that love.
The true sense of what love is.
Right. People like Bruce Music and Love at First Fight, he says, when all of this is about to begin, just stop and reconnect with your partner. Maybe, make eye contact or hold a hand. I think that might be hard to do if you're triggered. But he says, stop and just connect. Just even if you just quiet and breathe for a little bit. You want to connect with, you. So bringing it back to what is most important. And even in the book, Conscious Girlfriend says, step back into yourself and connect with yourself with compassion. So that's that self-love too, as you are quieting that fight, flight, freeze response. Again, my thoughts are, it is a matter of practicing. Practicing makes better when these things come up, because we're talking about holy relationships and emotional healing, but it applies to other types of relationships, co-workers, friendships, families, and so it's just a matter of, when you're in that, step back when the heat is high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and taking responsibility for self, know thyself, and then take responsibility for self. It's not just that, oh, I'm triggered and now you have to handle my triggers. It's that I'm triggered and I will take responsibility for what it is I need to do to repair what has ever occurred within me and what might occur between us. And the connection part that you referred to is so important. It's another part of this paragraph that I started to read earlier. It says, whenever you feel the holiness of your relationship threatened by anything, stop instantly. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Stop
yeah.
instantly and offer the Holy Spirit your willingness, in spite of fear, to exchange this instant for the Holy One you would rather have. Because in the end, don't we really truly only want what is real about love, what is true about love, what is authentic about love, not the expectations? And yes, I have some fear because I'm vulnerable. But if I'm with someone who doesn't take advantage of that vulnerability and I don't take advantage of theirs, and we feel safe together, then we can say, you know what, here is what's happening. Let's go into it together and let's come out of it together.
Mhm, mhm.
So the blessing is the recognition. When it says your indebtedness to the other person, is because they're helping you see what still needs to be healed, or the whatever has occurred between you is not that person's fault. It's a mirror. It's an opportunity to look within. I am you, you are me. Let me look into the mirror to what I can see. I just made up a little poem there to see what's really going on inside my own self and what needs to be healed.
Well, it's like we were saying, it's important to go back to the connection between the triune, the mind, body, and spirit,
Mhm.
to form a truly beloved connection. I follow Joe Dispenza, and his famous saying is, "Your thoughts create your reality." So, I often pull myself into my own reality by becoming more aware of what I'm thinking about and thinking positive thoughts. But it's not just about positive thoughts about your life, your partnership. And, it's how we look at things versus a negative attitude rather, about what might be going on in the moment. I don't think it's just the moment, it's everything that's been going on in the mind, and he talks about thoughts being embedded in ourselves so much that the real keeps playing. And even this is even supported, these ideas are supported in neuroscience, where he says, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems are triggered by life circumstances. It's about reactionary behaviors. So, but becoming aware, I think, of our persistent thoughts in our minds at the moment being triggered, but more specifically, all of your thoughts, about your partner, your relationship, your coworkers, through the day, through the time together, the year, whatever. Because the thoughts, according to Joe, directly align to the goal of the relationship, because you're always saying we must take 100% responsibility for having created this experience. We
Yes.
created this experience
Yes.
with what we're thinking and feeling.
Mm.
So when we blame, we're really giving away our power, I think.
Yes.
Accountability is our responsibility. That reminds me, I was listening to Oprah Winfrey. She was having a talk with Michelle Obama. And I was laughing because she was saying, Oprah asked her about what happens when they disagree. And she says, well, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you that I'm the one that has to slow down and stop and think and be quiet and process, blah. But Barack is like, okay, let's get to this. We have to solve this. We have to do it. So she goes, so we've learned about each other and, our needs and how we come into a situation. So we step back and then we're able to enter it again. And, what I call is repair the tear, pick up the pieces of the heart that might have been hurt in some way, shape, or form. But, when I stop and I look at Michelle and Barack and their relationship, oh my God, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I love them too, and they're such great examples.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's a couple things you said. The part about stepping away, and also the part about accountability. Yeah, I think when you step away and you want some time in silence, it's not that cold shoulder silence. It's like I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back to you. I'm gonna come back to you. And in that time of silence, you think about your responsibility. You do take accountability for your own self. And like you said, you created it, or, we create our own dynamics. How did I contribute to this? How can I make it better? Instead of going away for a few minutes and thinking about all the things you want to say, like, oh, I'm going to come back and let you know I'm going to tell you all the things you've done wrong and all the things that I don't like. And
to do that because, right?
because somebody wants to be right, as opposed to joining together to have a peaceful resolution. And how can we do this? How can we do this better? And in A Course in Miracles, there's this concept of taking a view from above the battlefield. That's what it's called. Take a view from above the battlefield. And it's like, if you were a bird flying by, you're in your house, or maybe, let's say you're in your yard having an argument with your partner, and a bird flies by and goes, whoa, those some two crazy people, because I'm sure from the outside looking in, all our arguments sound a little bit cuckoo, a little bit crazy. And it's so self-absorbed, and so when we take ourselves out of the self-absorption of wanting to be right, wanting to project our fears or expectations, wanting to shame and blame and mock the other person, as opposed to taking time to think about, what might they be going through, and what am I going through, and how can we resolve this in a kind, loving, compassionate way. There's a line in A Course in Miracles that says, the temple of the Holy Spirit is a relationship. When I read that, I was like, that makes so much sense, because we don't do anything alone in this world. Whether we're in an intimate relationship or we're passing people on the street, there's always interaction. There's always either community or one-on-one. There's always a way to be in passing or in a longer term situation with someone. And it's always about, how do you show up? How do you show up in that interaction? Even if it's somebody who bumps into your cart in the grocery store, how is it that we show up in a way that doesn't make the other person bad? Because if you're on the receiving end of somebody telling you how bad you are, everything you've done wrong, and it's you, and shaming you and blaming you, you're probably not going to feel very loving in terms of wanting to respond with love. You might even want to remove yourself from that situation. And so in order for us to reach that goal, we have to both be committed to being kind and compassionate, and realizing, what? The relationship is the temple of the Holy Spirit. How beautiful is that?
I know, it really is.
To move toward a holy relationship.
Finding a peaceful, compatible resolution, I think, is what you once called it. And, when I stop and I think about that, consider the price of not doing them.
Yeah, that's hurting a person, hurting the relationship, perhaps even having it come to an end. I was telling you the other day, I went down the rabbit hole of these stories on YouTube of near-death experiences. And what I found was that regardless of, everybody had a little bit of influence from their own religious upbringing, but regardless of whatever religion, whatever deity they thought they saw, everyone had the opportunity to do a life review. And in the life reviews, they had like a sacred guide that went with them. And they said that person, that guide, that angelic being, never shamed them. However, they wanted them to take responsibility and open their eyes and their hearts to their behavior and how it affected other people. And all these people were able to see little situations that occurred in their lives that they thought were little, that actually affected another person. Things that they said, perhaps unkind words, just the energy between them of leaving that other person feeling poorly. And they came back into their world, because these were near-death experiences. They came back to live their life. They came back to live their lives completely committed to a heightened awareness of how they interacted with people and the words that they chose to use when they wanted to express themselves.
Because words matter. Once you spew them, especially if they're hurt, especially when they're hurtful, you can't take that back. This isn't a fish where you reel in and it's back. It's done.
Words do matter. They really do. And they found out in these reviews how hurtful they can be. And it reminded, this is like a silly example, but it reminded me of a story I told you about this guy who was doing, he was advocating for rescue groups to try and boost the adoptability of certain dogs. And he was in with this little dog, playing with this dog, and he said,
Yeah.
she's so sweet. I love this dog. What's her name? They said, oh, her name is Venom. The family had named her Venom because she didn't get along with the other dogs. And he said, so when people walk by the cages, what they see this tag that says Venom.
Mm.
So he said, let's change her name to Honey. What a difference. Honey, Venom. And we think about our words. Our words can be venomous or they
Yeah.
can be sweet.
Right. That was how the dog was perceived, by its name. The name and the personality of the dog were a contradiction. So that says something.
It does. It
I
does.
want to share that I learned at a very early age from modeling of adults in front of me that sometimes there's a profound message when you could just stop and just stay in silence.
Stay in silence, because when we're activated, that amygdala, that hijacking, that may be the time when the venom is spewed. So that might be the best time to take a break from someone, and specifically because you don't want to cause harm. You don't want to. There was a great song by Hezekiah Walker. It was called I Need You to Survive, but there was a great line in there where it said, I will not harm you with the words from my mouth. And it's such a recognition of the harm that can be done, that we can hurt each other, and that ultimately we don't want to. We may not always do the right thing, we may not always say the right thing, but we don't have to say the venomous thing. We don't have to hurt another person. And to say, I will not harm you, I can make a commitment to not doing harm to you or to me, and ultimately not to the relationship. And the Course in Miracles is constantly bringing us back to our own journey, to see how we're doing, to forgive ourselves, to love ourselves, and to have a commitment to being loving. In Buddhism, they call it wise selfishness. Actually, the Dalai Lama said it's wise selfishness to love yourself first, because then you'll have greater compassion. To be able to love and see yourself and see your flaws, and to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to do better and be better so that I can do better and be better for you, and so that I can love you better, so I can be a better example of what love truly is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I just feel that it keeps, pointing back to us, and in order to be able to really get to that self-awareness and self-love, in the relationship, forgiving others, loving ourselves, as you say, rising higher.
Yeah. Pray harder, rise higher, love steadily, forgive readily. That, I say it all the time because, I want to ultimately live that way too. That's why we call it spiritual practice. We're working toward doing the healing that needs to be done on an emotional level, so that we can rise a little bit higher on a spiritual level. It starts with what the true idea of what love is.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to declare that I'm on a love me streak, because if I could love myself, then I open my heart to love others and the environment.
Yeah, I'm going to join you in that. I think that we'll just create love as the foundation of everything we do. And as every day you wake up, you got 24 hours ahead to say, I'm gonna set my day on the foundation of love. And I think on that note, we might want to wrap it up and think about what comes next. What comes next, Linda? What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I think this has been a great conversation, but it leads us into maybe some others around love languages, or that nature. I was reading, I'm always reading something.
Yeah.
And I came across this other love languages. So that might be something we're going to talk about, loving ourselves and loving others. And maybe that's a route to take. We'll have to talk about it first.
Right. like as soon as we hang up. But I do love the idea of expanding on love languages. People often will say to me, what's your love language? And I think there's combinations and there's more. So I do look forward to hearing what else there is from your studies. But for now, I just want to say thank you so much for bringing us full circle on this conversation of emotional healing and holy relationships. And let's just keep working toward that. And the love is our foundation. I love me. I love you. And I thank everyone for being here with us and letting us know what it is that you'd like to hear next. Because, you know, Lynn and I, we got stuff to say, and we're happy to say it together. So bye for now. Be safe on 4th of July, and God bless you.